was in turmoil. Amidst the darkness, a ray of hope emerged. Matrix Rico, a cold-blooded intergalactic ultramarine with a bad attitude. An 8-bit classic to a 90s action phenomenon. Nuke Em Rico is up next. Only on Star Planet, The Forgotten Chapters.
The multiverse is infinite, with a never-ending supply of stories. And these are the Forgotten Chapters.
Greetings, true champions of the cause. Welcome to Star Planet, The Forgotten Chapters. I am your host, the tenebrous Arius Valo. In this captivating episode of Forgotten Chapters, join us as we embark on a journey into the fantastical realm of Nuke Em Rico, a legendary late 90s video game franchise hailing from the intriguing universe 8870. Our focus today will be on delving into the second chapter of the novelization, inspired by the narrative of the groundbreaking first video game. Now, in the alternate reality of Universe 8870, Sega emerged triumphant in the gaming wars, eventually acquiring and assimilating its rival Nintendo into the Grand Sega Empire. Nuke Em Rico, a Sega property, is a multimedia franchise that rivals the size of not only Sonic the Hedgehog, but also Super Mario Bros. Expanding beyond video games, television, comic books, and even the silver screen, Nuke Em Rico also is the subject of a series of action-packed novels, which is where our story continues. Written by Scott Adam Hart, and with cover art by Nanali Jangwei. Let's dive into the first chapter of Nuke Em Rico. Book 1, Chapter 2. The sprawling skyline of Arcadia City gradually thinned as Rico approached its outskirts. The towering structures and neon-lit skyscrapers that once dominated the urban landscape gave way to a more subdued and scattered slumscapes. The air seemed to change, losing the tangible pulse of the city's energy. The buildings became shorter, the lights less vibrant, and the sounds less cacophonous. Rico knew that there was only one person who could get him into Elvasu quietly and undetected, and now he needed to visit that person. He drove the police vehicle towards the outskirts of the city, his robotic arm clicking and humming as he drove. As he arrived at the outskirts of the city, he parked the police vehicle and made his way towards a rundown bar. The bar was situated in a shady part of town, and the patrons inside looked like they had seen better days. Rico made his way to the bar, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew that this was a risky move, but he had no other choice. He needed to find this person, and he needed to do it fast. As he entered the bar, he was hit with the smell of alcohol and sweat. The patrons inside barely noticed him, their eyes fixed on the drinks in front of them. Rico made his way to the back of the bar, where a lone figure sat at a booth hidden by shadows. "Hello, Rico," said the figure, a sly smile on their face. Rico nodded, taking a seat across from the figure. "I need your help," he said, his voice low. The figure leaned forward, their eyes locked onto Rico's. "And why should I help you?" "Because if you don't, I'll drag you out of this bar and drop you off the highest building I can find," growls Rico. The air in the dimly lit bar grew thick with tension as the patrons shifted their attention toward Rico. The once muted sounds of casual conversation were replaced by the subtle creaking of wooden stools and the soft hum of concealed weapons being readied. Rico's gaze swept across the room, his eyes ablaze with a fierce intensity. The patrons, now standing or poised with concealed laser guns, presented a united front. They were ready to protect the mysterious figure seated at the back of the bar, sensing a threat emanating from Rico. The figure in the booth remained composed, a cryptic smile playing on their lips. As Rico clenched his robotic hand, the hum reverberated through the silence, signaling the potential eruption of violence in the air. "You you think these idiots can protect you from me?" Rico's words sliced through the uneasy quiet, a challenge hanging in the balance. The patrons, though armed and seemingly united, exchanged uncertain glances. With a subtle gesture, the mysterious figure raised their hand, signaling for the patrons to stand down. A quiet command that cut through the tension like a knife. The once armed and ready patrons hesitated for a moment before slowly returning to their drinks, the bar regaining an illusion of normalcy. The figure in the booth chuckled, an amused grin playing on their lips. "Easy, Rico. What do you need?" "I need to get into Elvasu quietly," says Rico. "The Helberto's compound? No way, you're crazy, man. That's freaking suicide," says the figure. Rico lunges forward, slamming his hands to the table between them. "He took my daughter, Drake." Rico growls. The mysterious figure, now identified as Drake, leaned back slightly in response to Rico's sudden intensity. The revelation about Rico's daughter seemed to cut through the air like a razor, shifting the dynamics of the conversation. Drake reaches into the pocket of his jacket and pulls out a cigarette and a flip lighter. With a flick of his thumb, the flame ignites, casting a warm glow on his once shadowed face. His features come into sharp relief, a face worn and heavily scarred, with eyes that have seen too much. He wears a sharp, dark black collared shirt, and a silver cross hangs around his neck, glinting in the dim light of the bar. He takes a deep drag, the cigarette's tip glowing bright red, and then exhales a plume of smoke, his expression contemplative. "Elvasu," Drake mutters, as if tasting the weight of the words. "I've known a lot of men who have gone in that place, but have never come out." Rico's impatience flares. "Drake, I don't need a history lesson. I need a way in." Drake's eyes meet Rico's, a flicker of something almost like empathy passing through them. "All right, Rico. There's a man named Axon. He's a tech genius, a hacker who can disable security systems like the ones at Elvasu. He owes me a favor." Rico's face tightens with hope. "Where can I find him?" "Last I heard, he's holed up in the old abandoned factory in Sector 9. It's a rough part of town, even worse than this dump. But if anyone can get you inside Helberto's compound without setting off every alarm in the city, it's Axon." Drake takes another drag from his cigarette, the end glowing fiercely in the dim light. "But be warned, Rico. Once you're in, you're on your own. Axon can get you past the first layer of security, but after that, it's all on you. And Helberto won't go down without a fight." Rico nods, determination hardening his features. "Thank you, Drake." Drake exhales another cloud of smoke, his scarred face disappearing briefly behind the haze. "I will take you to Axon," he says, pausing to ash his cigarette. The flickering light casts deep shadows on his worn features, making the scars seem even more pronounced. "But just remember, Rico, you owe me now." Rico narrows his eyes, the weight of the promise settling on his shoulders. "I understand. Let's just get this done." Drake nods, standing up and flicking his cigarette to the floor, grinding it under his heel. He motions for Rico to follow him out. Drake and Rico exit the bar, the tension between them palpable. "Let's take my car, huh?" Drake says, glancing at the police hover car Rico arrived in. "That squad car looks like it will bring too much attention, especially where we're going." Drake motions to a sleek, black, sports-like hover car parked nearby, its aerodynamic design cutting through the air with effortless grace. The body is matte black, absorbing the dim light of the parking lot, making it almost invisible in the shadows. The vehicle's sleek curves and sharp angles give it a predatory look, like a panther ready to pounce. The windows are tinted, offering both privacy and a hint of menace. Underneath, blue lights pulse softly, giving it a futuristic glow while it's powerful. Barely audible engines hummed. Drake unlocks the doors with a flick of his wrist, and the doors open upwards, revealing a luxurious interior. The seats are upholstered in supple black leather, and the dashboard is a high-tech array of holographic displays and touch-sensitive controls. The steering wheel is a compact, futuristic design, embedded with various buttons and switches that control the hovercar's myriad features. The two men slide into the vehicle, the seats molding to their bodies for optimal comfort and support. As the doors close with a soft hiss, the interior lights up with a cool blue glow, the dashboard coming to life with information and diagnostics. Drake presses a button, and the hovercar lifts off the ground smoothly, the anti-gravity engines engaging with a soft whir. They ascend into the air, leaving the parking area of the bar behind. The cityscape of Arcadia stretches out below them, a sea of lights and skyscrapers. They head towards Sector 9, the underbelly of the city where danger and opportunity lie in equal measure. A loud clang jolted Sasha awake, her heart pounding. The pain from the bump on her head finally registered, and she instinctively grabbed her forehead. The safe room was shrouded in complete darkness, adding to her disorientation. Another clang echoed through the space, followed by a grinding noise that sent a shiver down her spine. Sparks suddenly sprayed from the top corners of the doorframe, illuminating the room in brief, harsh bursts. Sasha's fear intensified as she watched the sparks travel down the doorframe, lighting up the room in intermittent flashes. When the stream of sparks reached the floor, the door was kicked in with a deafening clang, and light from the outside poured into the room. Two of Helberto's men wearing welding goggles peered into the room with sinister smirks. One of them pulled up his goggles, revealing cold, calculating eyes. They stepped aside, and Helberto himself walked between them, his robotic feet clanging ominously on the floor. Hey, pequeña Lolita, I can see you," he said, his voice dripping with a twisted mix of amusement and malice. Sasha's fear turned to terror as she looked up at him. Helberto squatted down in front of her, a smirk playing on his lips. "Don't worry. Uncle Helberto's not going to hurt you. I just want your dad to come and get you," he said, his smirk slowly fading into a serious expression. "But as for my friends, they're not as nice as me," Helberto continued, his words making Sasha's heart drop. "You should meet them," he added, his cybernetic hand gripping Sasha's forearm with a vice-like hold. She tried to pull away, but his strength was overwhelming. He began to drag her out of the room, her screams of "no" echoing off the walls. Helberto laughed in amusement, his sadistic glee palpable as he pulled her into the harsh light beyond the safe room. Drake's hover car glided smoothly through the traffic-laden skies over Arcadia City. Inside, the tension between Rico and Drake was palpable, the silence stretching out uncomfortably since they had entered the vehicle. "So, you're just gonna sit there silent?" Drake finally broke the silence, his tone laced with irritation. "I've got nothing else to say to you," Rico replied curtly. "And I don't have to help you," Drake shot back, his eyes briefly flicking over to Rico before returning to the chaotic sky traffic. Rico swallowed his pride, knowing he needed Drake's help despite their past. "Fine. I can see that the life of crime is doing well for you, Drake," he muttered. "See, now was that so hard? A little conversation will make the trip go quicker," Drake said, a hint of a smirk playing on his lips. Yeah, it has. Far better than military life ever did," Drake continued, his tone turning reflective. "Well, I'm glad that the fall from grace was worth it," Rico replied, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, come on, Rico. What did you get out of it, huh? For all those years of service, all those years of risking your life? A nice house, some shiny medals, and a pat on the back, Drake retorted, his voice hardening. Rico glared at Drake, anger simmering beneath the surface. I make more in a week than you do on your pension in a year, Drake added, the words cutting deep. I'm glad turning your back on us worked out for you, Drake, he said through gritted teeth. Oh, come on, Rico. You act like we don't go further back than being a couple of gold cobras, Drake said, his voice tinged with a mix of nostalgia and irritation. Okay, I'll rephrase that. I'm glad turning your back on me worked out for you. Rico shot back, his tone icy. I never turned my back on you, Rico. You cut contact with me, Drake retorted, his voice rising slightly. You became a hitman and a criminal, Rico countered, his eyes narrowing. Ah, so I'm the bad guy, Drake said with a bitter laugh. Yes, Drake. Yes, you are, Rico replied, his voice firm. I argue that's a matter of perspective, Drake said, his tone now more philosophical. What? Rico asked, confusion and frustration mixing in his voice. I'm just another big guy with a gun. Depending on who is looking at that big gun, it dictates if I'm the bad guy or the good guy. Just like you, Rico. Like it or not, Drake explained, his eyes briefly meeting Rico's. Is that how you justify it to yourself? Rico asked, incredulity creeping into his voice. Oh, so you wear the white hat so you're in the right, huh? Drake said mockingly. That's right, Rico affirmed, his voice unwavering. So I guess I'm wearing the black hat, huh? At least it matches my shirt. Not like yours, Drake said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. What the hell does that mean? Rico demanded. It means it's easier to see bloodstains on yours, Drake replied coldly. My stains are justified, Rico said through gritted teeth. Are they, Rico? So the blood drawn from a politician's war is justified, but the blood drawn from a politician isn't? Drake asked, his voice challenging. We saved people, Rico insisted, his voice rising. And how many of them asked to be? Drake shot back, his voice cutting through the tense silence. What the hell does that mean? We saved people, Rico shouted, his voice cracking with a mix of anger and desperation. How many people died while you were saving those people, Rico? Drake shot back, his voice cold and unyielding. Drake, you are the last person to be lecturing anyone, Rico began, but Drake cut him off, his voice rising. How many women and children died while you were saving them, Rico? Drake pressed, his eyes burning with intensity. Oh, fuck you, Drake. Don't you dare. Rico's voice trembled with fury, but Drake interrupted again, relentless. How many kids just like Sasha died for freedom, Rico? Drake's words were like a knife, cutting deep into Rico's soul. Not now, Drake. Don't you dare bring her into this now. Sasha loved you, Rico yelled, tears welling up in his eyes, his voice breaking as Drake's words tore at his heart. Why do you think I'm helping you? Drake roared back, his own voice choked with emotion. From the moment she could talk, I was Uncle Drake. She was the hardest thing I had to leave behind. She wasn't just the light in your life, Rico, Drake said, his voice softening. Well, at least you can admit you turned your back on her, Rico shot back, his words biting. Drake gritted his teeth, holding back tears. A heavy silence filled the hover car as it glided through the skies, weaving in and out of traffic. Mom still asks about you, Drake finally said, breaking the silence. Rico's anger subsided a bit as he looked at Drake. How is Grace? He asked. Every time I see her, I've got to remind her what year it is, and that I'm her son, and I'm not 14 anymore, Drake replied, his voice tinged with sadness. "Oh," Rico said quietly. "She asks about you. Tells me the same story about us playing in my backyard, arguing over who gets to wear the Superman cape and be able to fly. And then I tell her that you're all grown up now with a little girl. Then she asks where's my family, and I tell her I don't have one. And then she begins to cry." Rico looked at Drake with genuine sympathy. "Same thing every time, and I've only got myself to blame," Drake says. "I'm sorry, Drake," Rico said, his voice sincere. "How's your mother?" asked Drake. "Died about 3 years ago. Cancer," responded Rico. Drake went quiet for a moment before replying. "Okay, that hits pretty hard. She loved you like a son," Rico said, his voice softening. "I'm so sorry, Rico," Drake said, his tone filled with genuine regret. "Can we talk about something else?" asked Rico, the pain in his voice evident. Drake paused, looking for a topic to lighten the mood. Rico stared out the passenger window, lost in thought. "Remember that girl from Kana City we met at camp?" Drake said suddenly. Rico smiled, a distant memory surfacing. "Oh my God, I haven't thought about her for years," Rico chuckled. "What happened to her?" Drake smirked. "She lives in my Monday to Wednesday house now." "What?" Rico said, looking at Drake with surprise. Drake laughed. "Well, I always had a way with the ladies," he says with a wink. "You should see my Thursday to Saturday." "Unbelievable," Rico said, shaking his head in disbelief before rolling his eyes, a smile playing on his lips. "Some things never change." Drake's hovercar descended from the twilight sky like a harbinger of doom, entering the labyrinthine heart of Arcadia's Sector 9. The air hung heavy with the acrid stench of smog, an industrial fog that clung to the crumbling warehouses, defunct factories, and seedy establishments that populated the district. Neon signs flickered in the haze, casting a sickly, ethereal glow over the grimy streets below. The hovercar touched down with a muffled thud, its sleek black doors hissing open like a mechanical beast exhaling its last breath. Rico and Drake stepped out, their footsteps echoing eerily in the near-empty streets, punctuated by the distant whir of machinery and the occasional desperate shout. "Welcome to Sector 9, Drake said, his voice dripping with a sardonic edge. "Home, sweet home." Rico surveyed the scene, his eyes narrowing as he took in the decay and despair that surrounded them. "This place hasn't changed much," he muttered, almost to himself. Drake led Rico through a series of winding back streets, each darker and more sinister than the last. The shadows lengthened, growing like malevolent spirits, while the air thickened with an almost palpable sense of foreboding. Eventually, they arrived at an old, decrepit factory on the outskirts of the city, a looming relic of a bygone era, its broken windows and rusted walls a testament to years of neglect and abandonment. "This is it," Drake said in a hushed tone. "Axon's inside." Rico nodded, his jaw set with grim determination. Drake pushed open the creaking door, and they stepped into the oppressive darkness of the factory. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the lingering scent of rusting machinery. They moved cautiously, their footsteps echoing ominously in the cavernous space. Ahead, a faint light flickered, casting ghostly shadows over a makeshift workstation cluttered with monitors, wires, and an array of electronic devices. Axon, a wiry man with sharp, jittery eyes and nimble fingers, looked up from his screen, his face a mask of shock and fear. "Drake, what the hell are you doing here?" "Axon," Drake said, stepping forward with measured calm. "We need your help. This is Rico. He needs to get into Elvasu, and you're the only one who can make that happen." "Elvasu? Why?" Axon responded, His voice edged with incredulity. Helberto kidnapped my daughter, Rico replied, his voice a low growl. Well, she's gone, man. Cut your losses and move on, Axon said quickly, his words spilling out in a nervous rush. Axon, this is Rico Matrix. Trust me. He's going to get his daughter, Drake said, his voice carrying an unspoken threat. Cool. Good for you, man. Good luck with that, Axon said dismissively. Rico's frustration was palpable, his fists clenching at his sides. Drake placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, signaling him to stay calm. Drake then moved closer to Axon, his presence menacing. I'm calling in one of my favors, Axon, Drake said, leaning over one of Axon's screens. Axon sighed deeply, his face a portrait of resignation. Drake, this is Helberto we're talking about. Drake nodded, his gaze unyielding. Yeah, and he'll never know you were involved. Axon's panic surged, and he reached for his inhaler. Drake snatched it off the desk, holding it just out of reach. Axon looked up at Drake, his eyes wide with distress. I'm calling in a favor, Axon, Drake repeated, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. Through ragged breaths, Axon finally relented. Okay. Drake handed Axon his inhaler, and Axon quickly used it, drawing in deep, shuddering breaths. Drake exchanged a smirk with Rico. Axon gathered his composure, looking up slowly as if reenacting their arrival. His wary eyes met Rico's determined gaze, and he sighed again, running a hand through his unkempt hair. Elvasu, huh? That's one hell of a fortress. But if Drake vouches for you, I guess I don't have much of a choice. Rico stepped forward, the fire of determination burning in his eyes. Just tell me what I need to do. Axon nodded, turning back to his monitors. All right, let's get to work. This isn't going to be easy, but if we play our cards right, you'll have a shot at getting your daughter back. Okay, true champions of the cause, I'm glad you're still with us. We'll see you after the break. You are watching Star Planet, The Forgotten Chapters.
The universe is a grand place, full of uncertainty. But the one thing you can be sure on is the greatest pizzas can always be found at Pistol Star Pizza, with over 500 trillion outlets throughout the universe. One thing is for sure, you'll never go hungry at Pistol Star Pizza. Pistol Star Pizza. At Pistol Star Pizza.
Would you look at that? The new beef superior is here, only at Starry's. Wherever you are in the universe, there's always one place that feels like home. Starry's, eat in, eat out, but always eat the best. Greetings, true champions of the cause. We hope you're enjoying your stay here on Star Planet. Please allow me to take this opportunity to introduce you to Star Planet Music, a continuously expanding portfolio of musical works that spans an impressive array of genres. Star Planet Music, the future of the underground. Visit starplanetmusic.com today.
Welcome back. Let's continue. Sasha's scream knifed through the corridor like a cry trapped between worlds, raw, helpless, and echoing down a long, suffocating hallway of cracked concrete and flickering lights. It was one of those forgotten places that reeked of mildew, machine oil, and old nightmares. The flickering overhead lights buzzed like dying insects, casting long, jagged shadows across the stained concrete walls. Somewhere in the distance, water dripped. Drip, drip, like a ticking clock, counting down to something awful. Laughter rose behind the scream, ugly, coarse laughter that scraped against the walls. Shadows moved, boots clunked, metal clanked. And then came him. Helberto stepped into view, dragging Sasha behind him like a rag doll, her arms limp, her knees scraping along the cold concrete. His glowing red cybernetic eye flickered with each step, scanning everything and nothing. He wasn't just a man, not anymore. The thing that dragged Sasha behind it scraped across the floor with a metallic hiss, each step punctuated by a clank that rang in the soul like a funeral bell. His grip was iron, dragging the girl across the cold concrete like discarded luggage. The men following him laughed, ugly laughs, the kind of sound that made the hairs on the back of your neck rise. Their voices bounced off the walls in drunken, slurred Spanish and English, laced with crude jokes and sick anticipation. "Mira nomás la princesita," one said, voice like gravel and broken dreams. "Parece que podría metérsela por más de un agujero a la vez," said another, elbowing his friend with a lecherous grin. Another moved forward and leaned in close. "She's got fire in her, jefe. Maybe we burn it out, see?" he whispers. Helberto stopped and turned slowly, his cybernetic eye glowing red in the shadows. "Cállate la boca, idiota," he growled. "She ain't for you." The laughter died quick. The silence fell like a blade. Then the hallway ended, dead-ending into a hulking steel door that had once belonged to a military vault. Helberto punched in a code with his mechanical hand, each button press echoing like a drumbeat in Sasha's chest. With a squeal of rusted hinges, the door began to open. With a grunt, Helberto threw it the rest of the way. The metal creaked like something ancient waking up, and with one swift motion, he flung Sasha through it. Her body slid across a polished wooden floor until she came to a stop in the center of the room, gasping. Helberto stepped in behind her and slammed the door shut, locking out the wolves. Sasha blinked. Her breath caught in her throat. The contrast was jarring, like waking up in a velvet coffin. It was a ballroom, Victorian in design. The room was draped in luxury, long past its prime. The walls were dressed in deep crimson wallpaper. Ornate furniture, dark woods carved with serpents and roses lined the walls. Paintings hung in golden frames, portraits of pale men and weeping women. Above, a crystal chandelier shimmered with 1,000 fractured lights, illuminating dust motes that floated like lost spirits. "Put it on," Helberto said. His voice was gravel dipped in oil. Sasha blinked, pushing herself onto her elbows. "Put what on?" He pointed to a mannequin in the corner, an elegant white dress draped over it like it belonged in a fairy tale or a funeral. "I might be a demon, Lolita," he said with a grin, his gold tooth catching the light. "But I ain't Satan. Not yet, anyway." He walked closer, each step clanking and whirring like a junkyard night. His robotic limbs were scarred and patched, steam hissing faintly from the joints. He loomed over her, his breath hot and metallic. His body, a cruel mix of man and machine, groaned as he leaned over her. "That dress belonged to my hermana. She was your age when, well, cuando murió. Real tragedy, you know." Sasha stared at the dress, then back at him, her lips trembling. "Whoa, what is this? What are you doing?" He tilted his head and smiled, but there was no kindness in it. "I'm gonna kill your Papa Chiquilla. That's all. You're just the worm on the hook. But still," he knelt beside her, voice suddenly low. "There's something about you. Maybe because your dad's the bastard who killed me. Respeto, you know? Or maybe... His eyes drifted to the wall. Sasha turned and froze. A portrait. A girl in the same white dress. Eyes like hers. It could have been her twin. Or her ghost. Mija, he says softly. I got no quarrel with you. But your papi. He's got blood on his hands. My blood. He tapped the side of his head, where the metal fused to his skull. This is what your father left me with. A walking corpse made of steel and bad memories. Helberto stood up slowly, cracked his neck with a whir of servos. Still, there's something about you, huh? Maybe 'cause your father... Is he Cabron? He killed me, put me in this walking scrapyard. Or maybe it's 'cause you look like her. Sasha's voice wavered. Are you going to kill me? Not yet. He turned and walked to the wall, gesturing to a red button embedded in the panel. This place? It's all yours, Princessa. You get the whole place to yourself. Upstairs, bedrooms, kitchen stocked. Hell, I even got cable. You want something? Push that. Though I wouldn't press it too often. The help don't bite. Unless I tell him to. What are you going to do to me? She asked, voice cracking. Nada. He chuckled. You're too young for my tastes. Besides, thanks to your dad, I ain't built for pleasure no more. He paused, the laugh fading. But if you were older, well, those beds wouldn't be for sleeping. Sasha stood shakily, fire returning to her eyes and fists clenched. Let me go. He laughed, a dry, evil sound that echoed off the walls like gunfire. Mija, you really don't get how this works, huh? This is a game. If your daddy don't come, this place becomes your coffin. If he does, one of us dies. That's your ticket out. Freedom only comes with blood. Him, or me. Simple math. He opened the steel door again, looked back with a devil's grin. And if he don't show, then this palace, this pretty coffin, is yours forever. With a final burst of mechanical laughter, he stepped into the dark hall, and the door slammed shut behind him, leaving Sasha alone, staring up at the chandelier in a room that smelled like roses. And with that, true champions of the cause. Chapter 2 has come to a close. What did you think? Does the 80s nostalgia still ooze from this story? Please let your thoughts be known in the comments. I truly look forward to reading them. I thank you for spending this time with us, true champions of the cause. Until next time, please like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to visit enterstarplanet.com for more. Until our paths cross again, I have been your host, Arius Valo. See you in the shadows, my love.